And now, your state champion in prose reading, Bella Teston from Harrisburg.
One morning, when I was 8 years old, I woke up a puffy pink monster. I saw these little red bumps that lifted themselves up and multiplied all over my body. My mother brought me to the doctor, and he asked us countless questions. Had we changed our laundry detergent, diet, soap? No. Everything was the same. Except he was asking the wrong questions. It's not his fault. Who could have guessed? Another doctor pointed to a symptom that could have suggested an STD. But it didn't make any sense. The adults argued I was too young. Again, the wrong questions. Every spring after that, when my grandfather would show up at my home, I broke out in hives again. My skin sounding the alarms of his return. Actor Michael J. Fox once said, "Family is not an important thing, it is everything." In many cultures, showing total loyalty and respect to elder family members is not only encouraged, it is expected. However, when love for family is exploited and manipulated in the most sickening ways, it begs the question, how far does loyalty really lie? In her moving memoir, a young Filipino-American girl shares the horrifying secret she's kept hidden from her family for years, explains how she reclaims her body and her life, and discovers how to give a voice to an unspeakable experience. The Body Papers by Grace Talusan. I know who I was before my grandfather came to live with us. Blood is thicker than water. The first lesson my mother ever taught me. My parents, they wanted to do right by their family. So my father's father, Tatang, he lived on and off with us in America. One spring day, when we were young, my little brother and I were sticking out the tips of our tongues at each other. And they touched accidentally, and we said, "Ew!" And then we laughed. That night, when I was 7 and my grandfather was 70, he came to my bed for the first time. He never spoke much to me, but right before he stuck his tongue in my mouth, waking me up from a deep sleep, he said, "I know you like this." This was the story I told myself. I touched tongues with my baby brother and gave my grandfather reason to believe I wanted what he did to me, like it was my fault. What I experienced is stitched into my psyche. The stubble of his chin, the pad of his index finger stained yellow with nicotine. I can't scrub some images from my mind. The feel of his weight and the odor of him on top of me. God. In public, he was always trying to hold my hand. We must have looked sweet. But if they had looked closer, they would have seen his pointed thumbnail scraping over my wrist like it was a knife to my throat. As a child, the only way I could make sense of what was happening to me was that every night I entered hell. And in the mornings, I was in heaven. There was daytime grandfather and nighttime grandfather. I told myself that the pain and the sacrifice of my hell moments were required to keep the family together. If you wish something isn't happening, does that just make it disappear? Because this is what happened. And happened. I was 8, and he was 71. I was 10, and he was 73. I was 12, and he was 75. One night, when I was 13, and he was 76, I felt excited to go to sleep for the first time since I was 7 years old. This is the last night I would go to sleep and be woken up by my grandfather's needs. He had made me change. I started falling asleep in class. I stopped showering and brushing my hair. I wasn't myself anymore. But now, I'd rather die early than live one more minute without authority over the borders of my own body. Later, when his face came toward mine, every cell of rage fired. I rose up, then I shoved his shoulders. He hit the bedroom wall, and he slumped to the floor. In my rage, it turned to joy. He quickly stood up and closed the door behind him. He looked both surprised and humiliated. That was all. I finally told my parents years later after my grandfather had died. My mother is still trying to atone for what happened. She showers me in affection and attention she would have given my children had I been able to have them. If they'd have their way, I'd never leave the house and risk getting hurt. So I don't tell her that the irony in all of this is that the most hurt that I've experienced was when I was living under their roof. God. My family still wants to do right by their family. Blood is thicker than water. The first lesson my mother ever taught me. But if you wish something hadn't happened, does that just make it disappear?